right, guys, we're almost done with the BioWork course. Can you believe it? We are already in module number 7. And module number 7 is going to focus on yet again another aspect of the biomanufacturing world and the manufacturing line and how to make products and how to make drugs so that way we can take care of people and make them better. All right, well, this is going to focus on facilities and manufacturing. So now our really kind of target is going to be the facility design. So what goes on when they build these buildings and I have to work in them? What's some of the thought process that goes into that? All of the engineering, all of the cleanliness on the manufacturing line and the manufacturing part of the company that I'm working for. And the manufacturing, of course, is going to be part of that. And we're looking at how these areas are going to be structured, how they're going to be managed, and what we have to do to ensure that they are meeting regulatory standards. So this module is going to be broken up into a couple of different sections. We're going to see a little bit about some regulatory things that we want to talk about, and then how do we monitor all of the areas that we're working in? How do we control contamination? So where is it coming from and how do we take care of that? The facility layout. So why is it laid out the way that it is laid out? Is there a reason for all of this? And then we're going to dive a little bit into clean rooms and aseptic processing, how I should behave in a clean room, what is accepted, what is not, and then aseptic techniques, which means, what can I do as a employee to make sure that my area stays clean with no contamination at all. So these are the types of concepts that we've got to go through. And of course, we're going to tackle them one at a time, and we're going to talk about little details in every single one of them. So I'm going to first start with a bunch of words. Go figure. Okay, don't write anything down except the highlighted term, and I've made this very easy for you. So I'm going to read this verbatim, and then we're going to talk about that highlighted term, and I'm going to flesh out that just a little bit. So it says, all right, so we've got biopharmaceutical manufacturing facilities comprised of complex buildings. Well, of course they do, right? I mean, there's a lot of complex things that go on up underneath the roofs. I mean, we've already talked about some of these things, right? We talked about distillation. We talked about condensation, evaporation, chromatography, all of the reactors and the fermenters that can be found. How do we take things from one area to another? Of course, these things are going to be complex, all right? So with many intricate controls, and that was something that we just ended up talking about. What are some of the controls that allow me to do my job a little bit better, a little bit easier, and a little bit more automated? So we talked about these things like feedback loop control, where we've got sensors and transmitters and controllers, okay? So each facility is built to support the CGMP processes. Oh my gosh, there's the highlighted word. What does that mean? We got to figure out what that abbreviation is. All right, so maybe you know and maybe you don't know, and if you don't know, then here you go. All right, so CGMP, the C is going to stand for current, and the G is going to stand for good. The M is going to stand for manufacturing, and the P is going to stand for practices. So that is a very important definition, especially if you're working in the manufacturing realm. Hello, GMP, good manufacturing practices. These are practices that you should be following, that your company should be following to ensure that we are good. Yay! All right, well, that also means that we're generating good data, that we are doing our job in a good way, that everything is in line according to plan, and that when we do make these products and when we do undergo these manufacturing steps, there is no second guess. There is no like, oh God, did I do this or did I do that, or what did I forget to do today? Well, these GMP practices are going to help you with all of this. So if we are following those, there is no second guessing anything that we have done. So we feel really good about the products that we are making. The regulatory technical technical and practical demands on biopharmaceutical companies, as you can imagine, are going to be much greater. And this is expected. We are making products, and these products are going to be drugs. These drugs are probably going to be administered either orally or through injection or in some format, one or another. Topical, maybe, that absorbs through the skin. Who knows? But we are working with consumers, and these consumers are going to be people, and these people are going to be taking the products that this company is making. So we want to make sure that these are very stringent as far as regulatory steps are concerned. We do really want to tighten our belts here because people's lives are at stake, and that is a very important idea to keep in your mind when you work for these biopharmaceutical manufacturers or just pharmaceutical manufacturers. It does not have to be biopharma. It can be small molecule. Yet again, it is still manufacturing. We're still making a product. They're still taking that product. So CGMP applies to them as well. Working in the facilities means understanding the controls and the real world concerns about me as a technician. So again, if I'm not doing my job the right way, if I'm not taking extra care in the steps that I do, then yeah, the manufacturing line can be hindered. The manufacturing line can shut down, and it could be my fault. I mean, I don't know. But more importantly than that, if it does not get shut down, then a consumer is going to get a hold of this product, and that product might be a bad product, and then that could send them to the hospital. That could actually make them end up dying. So I don't want that risk to be taken. So again, my job in the manufacturing realm, drastically important. And again, devils are in the details. All right, so here's a table, and this table is production facility activities. So what this table is trying to get across is that, folks, everything is scrutinized, every single bit of it. So when I do work for these companies, I'm going to be doing a specific job, and it really doesn't matter what job I'm doing. I am going to be scrutinized. I am going to be looking underneath a microscope at all of these people to make sure that they are doing their job the proper way. And not only people, but all of the things that are getting used and all of the things that are getting made in that facility. We also want to take a magnifying glass to them, and we want to inspect, and we want to dissect, and we want to kind of figure out that any problems happen at all. So what this table is trying to do is divide this up into three parts. In the first part, over here to the left-hand side, things are coming in to the plant. Now, these things can be a number of different options. Raw materials. So again, these are going to be ingredients that we've talked about in previous modules. So these are raw ingredients or raw materials that maybe we're getting a shipment of because we've got to use that in the manufacturing process in some form or fashion. So we've got to make sure that those are legit. We have to make sure that those are clean, that those are ready to be used. There's no contamination in them at all, and they are what they are. I mean, the identification is important, but also the concentrations of them are important as well. The personnel on that side of the house, support materials on that side of the house, and all the utilities on that side of the house really have to have some regulation involved. We have to oversee those in some form or fashion to make sure that everything is going according to plan. So the water that is incoming into the plant, the electricity that's incoming into the plant, support materials would be things like maybe not necessarily ingredients as far as chemicals go, but any support material that helps that process go forward. So these would be things like maybe seals or gaskets or whatever the case might be. These are items that we are getting ready to use, and we want to make sure that those items and chemical reagents, aka raw ingredients, those are all going to be super clean as expected. We've tested them. They are ready to go. I did my job, and I did my job the right way. So everything coming into the plant has those very tight, strict regulations in place and oversight. Next up, in the middle of the table, this is where things happen. So when I say that, what that means is that this is where most of the production is taking place. So all of the steps that we've talked about before in the previous modules, the chromatography steps are happening here. All of our filtration steps are happening here. The fermenters, the bioreactors are happening here. These are all processes that go on in order to make a final product. Absolutely, those have to have regulations. Those have to have oversight. We have to make sure that those are going according to plan, because if they're not, then what are we doing? We're getting ready to kill somebody, and I hope that we don't do that, because that's bad. So with that said, in order to prevent that from happening, when we do make a product, and that's when things go out, then all of those outputs have to be tested. They have to be analyzed. We have to check off on them. So there's going to be rules and there's going to be regulations. And there's going to be oversight in that section as well. So everything from the finished products are going to have to be tested. All of the waste that's getting generated by the company, where's that going to go? So we've got to test that waste. We've got to make sure that it is free to be dumped, or do we send it off to an incinerator? What do we do with it? So all of that's got to have some type of thought process behind it. And then again, personnel. So these personnel people, okay, you became exposed to all of these. Did you do your job the right way? Did you get contaminated? Can we check you to make sure that everything is okay? The same thing happens with materials coming in. If I'm working with some of these materials, personnel has to be scrutinized as well. So do not feel that there is a target on your back when they begin to ask questions, and then when they begin to follow up those questions with more questions, because they want to make sure things have went according to plan. We have to make sure we do our jobs the correct way. And one slight mistake could be a disaster for the company, and we do not want to take that risk. So all of these are controls. Now, I kept saying regulations and oversight and test. Well, these are all controls that are in place. These controls are in place. They are there for a reason, and that's to make sure that every aspect of the company, whether it's coming in throughout the process or going out, is touched in some way by some type of oversight. Security is also going to be part of this. Your personal safety is going to be part of this. The facility design is going to be part of this. Everything that this business kind of does has to be upheld to the highest standards as possible. And it is simply because of the products that we are producing with these companies. So everyone and everything has to be managed, folks, every bit of it. So again, do not feel bad. You will be scrutinized. I guess that's maybe a wrong term to be used, but people will monitor your job performance, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and then your supervisor will also be monitored in some form or fashion to make sure everything is going to plan. Things have to be, what I say on this slide, is a very tight ship. And this is the only way that you can ensure quality of those products that you are making. If you are just letting the chickens out in the yard just do whatever they want to do and run wherever they want to run, then good luck for you, folks, because that's not going to happen in biomanufacturing. Your chickens have to stay in a line. Your chickens have to line up from head to tail all the way through, and they can't run crazy, and they can't throughout the yard and lay eggs wherever they want to do, because that is not how biomanufacturing works. Personal safety is up front, right up at the very top. Again, this is something they don't want you hurt while you're on the job. They don't want you contaminated while you're on the job. But this is going to be something a little bit later that we're going to talk about in better detail. But your personal safety, of course, is upfront and personal. So this is something that they take very seriously. You should take it very seriously. And that means that in some cases, depending on where we are in the company, we could be gowning from head to toe. So my head and my eyes and my mouth and my shoulders and my hands and my waist and my legs and my arms and my shoes, everything could be covered from head to toe. And this is due to what you see on the screen, which is probably going to be also kind of important, I guess, is going to be OSHA. All right. And OSHA is just our occupational safety group that will go through work environments, not just biopharmaceutical, but any work environment. I mean, if a business is in place, then OSHA can visit that site location and just make sure that the employees that are working at that location are going to be working in a very safe environment. That is the overall purpose of OSHA. And if they find a violation, and if they look at these types of areas or these types of facilities, again, whether it's biopharma or something totally different, it does not matter. It doesn't have to be science related at all. But if OSHA goes into these workplaces and they see that something's going on that's not necessarily safe, then they're going to let people know about it. If they have recommendations, they're going to let people know about it. So this is not just science and biopharma driven. It is any workplace period really kind of has to answer to OSHA. Even local Walmarts, right? You go to your local Walmart, you probably go back to like the layaway section or the back bathrooms or somewhere. You probably will see a sign in some form or fashion that will say something about OSHA, and it will be like, people at this work site should be, and then they give you a kind of a list of things that you should be doing, that you should be following. Security is also mandatory. So I'm going to say that again. Security is mandatory. Okay. So that means I can't break in. Well, no. Okay. Mandatory. They're not necessarily worrying about robbers breaking in and stealing little yeast and then running off in the night with it and celebrating what they did. What this really is referring to is that they do not want the facility to allow access to any kind of person that comes up to the front door. That is what this security is really representing. So very often, if you visit or if you work at one of these types of manufacturing plants, you will have to go through security and you will have to sign in. And there's only limited areas that maybe you could go into. And then after that, folks, that is it. Unless you're an employee with special clearance that can go into some of these areas, you cannot visit them just as a person that would like to see what's going on. So security has to be in place with all of these biomanufacturing facilities. Absolutely has to be. So if you go out to Quality Chemical Labs, for instance, here in town, and you visit their main headquarters building, well, there is going to be a locked door in place. You can't just come off the street, out of the parking lot, walk through the front door and go into the lobby. So there's going to be someone there that's going to kind of buzz you in, and then you go up to the counter and you're going to tell that person who you are and why you're there, and then you're going to have to fill out a visitor log, and you're going to have to sign your name, date it, and time it, and then you're going to wait on the appropriate person to come to you. And then we figure out, okay, well, why are you there? What would you like to see? What would you like to talk about? And your role of visiting that company for that particular day. So these areas can be scrutinized as well. Of course they can be. Auditors can visit these areas. Absolutely. That's why we have some of these things in place. And when these auditors come, they do have access to whatever they want to see for the most part. So they're going to be, again, looking at issues, looking at areas that can be improved, writing reports, and sending those reports back to the company. So facilities are going to have to be maintained. That's what this lecture really is all about. And these facilities that have to be maintained, well, it really is going to be maintained from the inside and maintained from the outside. So everything about the building, so the roof and the walls and the floors, the water sources, the electric sources, all of that, we have to ensure that maintenance is taking place. Because after all, folks, think about it. Use common sense. We're working in areas that are making drugs. The last thing that you want to do is pull up to a company and it looks like a little kind of rundown wooden shack out in the middle of nowhere that is great for the next horror movie. So that doesn't quite make sense, right? Well, okay, we believe that if those regulations are not in place, that someone might try to actually do something like that and probably get by with it. So maintenance is a very important aspect of working for these companies, and jobs that are just basically maintenance only for these companies. So we've got a site that needs to pay attention to drainage. For instance, that's a maintenance thing. So we don't want water to pool up. We don't want, floods or little mini lakes surrounding the property. That could be bad news, and that could lead to bigger problems down the road. Pests are a number one concern with these companies. We don't want bugs getting in. We don't want bugs getting out. And I'm not necessarily talking about like bats and snakes, okay? But I'm talking about any little bitty tiny little creature. I mean, if you live here in Wilmington, there is a chance that you've seen what we call our glorified roaches, which are palmetto bugs. Ooh, those are palmetto bugs. Those are water bugs. Okay, they're kind of just big extra roaches. I mean, that's kind of what they are. So we don't want those getting into the plant, of course. But then at the same time, if you live here in Wilmington, you might see those little creepy crawlies with like 1,000 little legs that are running around with 2 little antennas in your bathrooms or anywhere a water source is. Okay, well, if you see those types of bugs or just a tiny little ant that is coming inside of your home, all of these are problems, folks, that happen with biopharma and any type of pharmaceutical production. We cannot allow that to happen. So the inclusion of those little bitty ants, even if it's just 3 or 4, can make a disaster happen. And we have to make sure things are there to prevent that from taking place anyway. So pest control is part of facility design. Facility inspections are part of FDA audits. FDA audits, of course, the FDA is going to be Food and Drug Administration. So you probably have learned about them already, but Food and Drug Administration. And the Food and Drug Administration will send people at these locations. They will inspect, they will audit, they will look at maybe data and reports and filing, what you're doing. They could ask questions to the employees that work there, like, do you really know why you're doing what you're doing? Or are you just following a step and not asking any questions? Like, do you understand the importance of your job? So the Food and Drug Administration has that kind of role, and they will go through and do audits every handful of years, and these audits could be surprise, or they could kind of let them know, hey, I think we're going to be in your area during this time. I'm not going to give you a certain date or a certain time, but this is kind of what we're shooting for. So the FDA audits can happen in many different ways and many different reasons. They could just be routine, or they could be initiated by a claim or some type of an alert that the FDA has received based on what's going on at the company. As I said, pests are the number one concern. Oh, God, no, bugs. All right, so pests are pests? Of course they are, and we don't want them in our house, and we definitely don't want them in the biomanufacturing facility either. So very often, it is not uncommon to find tons of traps or some type of mechanism inside and outside the buildings to make sure that you are capturing these things before they make themselves on inward into the buildings and into the facility and into the production area. So if you do see bugs, whatever they might be, however little they might be, you do want to go through the proper reporting procedures. So this is something major that is a concern yet again. So there's going to be an SOP in place, and that SOP is going to tell you what do you do if you see a little bitty ant coming into the floor, crawling around and saying, "Hey, Betty, what are you making today? I'm just a friendly little ant. What's going on? Can I help?" Okay, well, I'm sorry, little ant, but you can't be in here, so we're going to have to kill you. So this is kind of part of the process, and this is just kind of what has to happen. So the inspectors, for any problem, even with its pest, and that's the number one concern that they do have most of the time when they inspect these production areas, they can go back and they can generate two types of forms. The first form is what we call a 483 observation, and this is saying, hey, this is what we saw, and this is what you can do better, or this is how you can fix it, maybe. Sometimes they're very abbreviated. Sometimes they're going to be a little bit more detailed, but they're going to at least tell you what has alarmed them. So that is their observation. That is what they saw. So we saw this going on in this area of the production plant. This violates blah, 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 blah. And then, in addition to a 483 observation kind of based form, they can give you what's called a warning letter. Oh no, a warning letter! Well, yeah, this would be equivalent to like back in school when you were doing your assignments. You were probably halfway doing them, and then you were turning them in, and you were getting F, 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 F. And then sooner or later, you turned in so much assignments, or so many assignments that were F, 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 that your mom and dad probably got a warning letter, and that warning letter was, hello, your student is going to fail. So that is a warning letter from a teacher, and we have warning letters for FDA as well, and we do not like those. Oh no, we stay away from those warning letters whenever we can, because those warning letters are going to be something major, and those warning letters need to be responded to, because if I don't respond to them, things get much worse. And then they're going to give me a due date. They're going to give me a time frame. They're going to say this has to be fixed because it's a serious issue, and we're going to come back and we're going to do follow-ups, and we're going to kind of peep in on you, and we're going to see if these areas of concern have been addressed and fixed, and we hope that they are for your behalf. So that is a warning letter from the FDA. Now, I do want you to understand that the FDA actually has no power to shut anyone down. Now, that's kind of misleading, right? So the Food and Drug Administration can go in and they can inspect and they can do all these things that they want to do, but they cannot legally, like, force the company to close. What they can do, though, is that they can fine you to death. So they can issue these big, huge fines to these companies and make them pay up and make them pay out large amounts of money out of their own pocket, where in a sense they could end up going bankrupt. And if they go bankrupt, then they do close. But the FDA cannot come down and be like, we gave you a warning letter, and they come with a little chain and a lock and lock the doors and not let anyone in. They do not have that type of power. But again, they can do something similar to that in a roundabout way, and they can do a backdoor approach where they just fine you so much money that that company really does have to go out of business or shut down until they do fix these problems. So that way, if they want to open back up again, they can. But those problems have to be addressed and fixed first. All right, so that is a little bit of introduction to what we're getting ready to see and a flavor of what this module is going to be about. So as you can tell, it's going to be about buildings, it's going to be about cleanliness, it's going to be about regulatory people coming in and doing what they need to do, and what is my role as a manufacturer? What is my role on the production line in order to ensure that these types of issues and problems do not happen? So that way, the people that I work for don't get in trouble because I'm doing my job the right way, and the people beside me are doing their job the right way. And if they're doing that, then the company is doing their job the right way as a whole, and everybody benefits from that. So in section 7.2, which is going to be the next video, we are going to focus more on facility regulations. So that is where we're going to pick up. So, hey, folks, this is fresh topic right off the bat. I know you've watched one video about 30 minutes. Come back and watch another one. It's just going to be another 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the case might be. Come back and enjoy the show.